Welcome to Rainier Avenue Radio World. It's me, your host, Tony B. This is our special edition of Black History Month. And this is the first show that we're doing on our Northwest Legacy and Black History Makers. I'm excited to have on the program with me Mr. Omari Tahir Garret. Omari, how are you? Hey, Omari, how are you?
Can you hear
me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
No. Okay. Yeah, now I can hear.
Okay. Now you can hear me.
Yes, I sure can.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on the program. Welcome to our studio. Again, you missed my little introduction of you, but we have so much that we would like to get from you. I want to go ahead and dive right into this. You are running for mayor this year. Again, this program entitled Northwest Legacy and History Makers. You fit firmly into that category. So I want to start hearing your voice. I will occasionally maybe ask you questions, but I'd like you to start at the beginning, which is your family and your family coming to the Central District, so that we have, again, a better understanding of not only what you've done, but why you have chosen to be the type of individual that you are. So let's get started with that. Your family comes to Seattle. It's the whole thing, Liberty Bank, everything. Just break it down for us.
Okay, first I'd like to thank Tony B and the station for the opportunity to basically have a Back to the Future interview, because my granddad lived about 4 houses from where we are right now, and he was from Alabama, and he had to leave Alabama and change his name because I guess he got into something down there, and he moved to Kansas, where he met my grandmother, and his name was Henry Joe Tyson, and my grandmother's, she was, her family was Rent. So my dad was the first Black electrical engineer in the whole Northwest part of the United States in the 40s. And it was interesting because I'm writing a book on the Garrets at Garfield, because we had 18 Garrets at Garfield. My little brother Fred was in the first demonstration in 1963 in Seattle at the mayor's office. And my second youngest brother, Mike Garret, was a warrant officer in the Southeast Asia, and he used to fly helicopters, helicopter pilot. He used to fly drugs for the CIA. And then my next oldest brother is Randy Garret, and he moved to Paris about 35 years ago and started a restaurant. It was a famous restaurant, James Brown, Dr. J. Anybody that was somebody from U.S. would go to the restaurant. And then my oldest brother, Tom Garret, used to play with Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix used to practice at our house that is across the street from the George Washington Foundation. And our address was 1809 26th Avenue. So I was the middle boy. And so I got a chance to watch my younger brothers and my older brothers. And basically, my older brother was my hero. So that's the way that goes. So I started out at Harrison Martin Luther King School and in kindergarten. But they said the tough guys went to Madrona up on the hill. So in first grade, I transferred to Madrona. And it was interesting because Madrona was mixed. We had Asians, we had Europeans, we had Africans, which we found out we were, you know. And it was there that I was first introduced to multiculturalism because my best friend in grade school was Alfred Notori, a Japanese descent. And I used to go to his house, and he had these dolls that, you know, in the little glass cage with the kimonos on. And that was my first introduction to a different culture. And then
and about what time frame was that? About what?
This was in the 50s.
Okay.
This was in the 50s because I went to Meany was junior high school then in about 57, 58, 59. And at Meany was the first time I got introduced to the fact that the police would kill you because the police killed Eddie Lincoln, one of our 13-year-old classmates. And that was a big shock to all of us. So when I went to Garfield, I think I started Garfield when I graduated 64, so I must have got there at 61. And I remember the next brush with death was in 61 when my mother on December 27th went to Group Health Hospital to have our first little girl baby, and the doctor killed her, the baby, and committed suicide. And so I went to Garfield in 61. I guess that's the same year that she died. And in 63, when I was in physics class, the physics teacher left and then came back in and said the president, John Kennedy, had been shot. And then he went out about 10 minutes later, and then he came back and said that President Kennedy was, was dead. And that was the first time that I basically went on a hunger strike. I didn't know what a hunger strike was, but that evening I just didn't want to eat. And so I graduated in 64. I was the first Black starting quarterback at Garfield in 64. And we were all stunned because of the assassination of the president. So I think that was one of the things that had the biggest impact on our class of 64, And so I went to Shoreline College. I was quarterback out there. The first year I was honorable mention all conference, led the league in touchdown passes, and never started a game. First time and last time in history that the school, where the second string quarterback is ahead of the first string quarterback. And then the second year, I came back. I didn't want to come back because I didn't know Blacks weren't supposed to be quarterbacks, and so we took a lot of abuse. So my last year, I played against John Elway's dad. He was coaching Columbia Basin. We lost the first year. The second year I started, we won. I was all conference. And the last game we played, Columbia Basin, again, coached by John Elway's dad. And I only got to play 3 minutes because myself and the coach didn't get along. And I was all conference as a freshman and in baseball, a shortstop. And the head baseball coach was the defensive coach on the football team. So I didn't have to deal with him, but spring training, I couldn't make the second season because the coach got on me in spring training. And so I quit, and me and Bobby Joe Mitchell, we went to Boeing's, and we got hired at Boeing's, grade 7. And we were working a lot of overtime on the 747 mock-up. I was making $1,000 a week in 1966. So at 19, I bought a house, car, truck, motor, anything I wanted. And I'm like, man, life is too easy, making money, and got a house, and then in, I guess about 66 is, I want to give accolades to the Dixon family, because in 66 and 67 is when the quote, quote, Black Power movement started. And Aaron, the senior brother, Elmer, the middle brother, and Michael, the Dixon, the younger brother, they were like the backbone of starting the Black Panther Party in Seattle, which was the second Black Panther Party outside of Oakland. And you need to read the book, My People Rising by Aaron Dixon, because he was right under Huey Newton.
I want you to continue. I just think that that's a good opportunity to remind everyone that this Friday night at 7 o'clock, Aaron Dixon will be on the air with us, and we are going to screen the film, My People Rising. So that's this Friday at 7 o'clock. And Mr. Garret, go ahead and continue.
Well, so I left Boeing's in 66, yes. And I got drafted. And so I go down to the drafting headquarters, and I'm filling out these papers. And the sergeant started hollering and screaming like he's crazy. So I did the freeze on him, I just froze, wouldn't talk to him, wouldn't look at him. So he went and got some lieutenant, and then lieutenant came, I wouldn't talk to him. And so they sent me home. But since my dad was head of the Fish and Wildlife for the U.S. government then, and so he's a big government official, somehow it got to him that his son was refusing the draft, so he came to my house and whining and crying and, telling me that the Army was way ahead in integration. Yeah, but feeding black youth and children to war useless, because he didn't go to World War II. He stayed in college and became an electrical engineer. So he takes me down to James Simble's office, who was the regional postmaster, and he got this big flag and big desk and, blah, blah, blah. So what I did, I joined the Merchant Marines, and the Merchant Marines went to Japan and Vietnam. So I was in Saigon for 30 days. So I got off the ship and I talked to black soldiers, white soldiers, Vietnamese soldiers. And all of them told me, do not come back over here in no green monkey suit, because you're in for 12 months of hell. So when I get back to Seattle, they take me out of the Merchant Marines and put me in the U.S. Army. Oh, okay. So I went to basic training at Fort Lewis, and I was the only trainee that had already been to Vietnam. Well, I had debate out at Shoreline, and, I was stand-up quarterback, so I was used to, doing things, scrambling quarterback, you got to do it. And so I thought it was great that I got to talk at the command information classes and tell about, hey, Vietnam is a hoax, blah, blah, this, blah, blah, that. But I didn't know when you rock the boat, you start getting in trouble. make a long story short, they sent me to a D1 unit in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, where Jimi Hendrix happened to be discharged 5 years earlier. So then he went to Memphis and he started playing with Little Richard and Bill Withers. But the problem with Jimmy he's supposed to be a guitar player. So he's playing with these big name entertainers, but the people is looking at Jimmy behind so the next bus stop is thanks but no thanks, Jimmy. I'm the star. So Jimmy got basically fired 2 or 3 times before a white individual picked him up, changed his name from James Hendrix to Jimi Hendrix, took him to Europe, and then he, blew up in Europe. So, because he joined the army with Robert Greene and Sharkey Perkins, and then they got split up in Germany. And so I was going to do a get together of all the people that knew Jimmy, but some of them died prematurely. So they had Jimmy's memorial this summer, and it was interesting because there was like 2 memorials. One memorial was Jimi Hendrix, our homeboy, and the other one was the other group was they came to celebrate Jimi Hendrix, the international, star. So my oldest brother was there, and so we took some pictures, So when I was in the Army, I got sent to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. So I was 50 miles from Memphis when they assassinated Dr. King. And so they came, we was the closest fort to Memphis. So they came on the fort to take us to riot control in Memphis. And so I told them, no. I'm not in the Army to pick up arms against black folks. And I was so naive coming from Seattle. I said, now, if you force us black soldiers to go to Memphis and you start shooting in the crowd, we're going to shoot you because we know what did I say that for? Instantly, I became a Black Panther, a Black Muslim, a Black militant. I'd never even heard of those words. So this was in about 68, yeah. Because I remember April 4th when I woke up and they said Dr. King had been assassinated. Well, I said they made a big mistake then because Dr. King was saying turn the other cheek. And but when Dr. King came to Seattle with the turn the other cheek and nonviolence, we said, are you crazy? Said, listen, we're so outnumbered that if we don't keep the, white folks, out of our neighborhood, basically, because the Central District was basically black. And the white people in the Central District grew up in the Central District. So they were basically black white people, So, they could fight, Carl Lilly was the number one, they had little gangs that would, fist fight sometime with knives. And this Miss McElvey was on my paper route, and she was the older white lady that always gave us candy and blah, blah, blah. But we didn't really know about this real tension between black and white because at Garfield, everybody was mixed, We had the whites from Broadmoor. They always won tennis and golf. And we had a mixed baseball team. And then we had a mixed football team. And then basically the black were the stars on the basketball team. And so everybody wanted to go to Garfield. That was the number one high school in the state, because we didn't know it at the time, but we were like what they wanted, this mixture of, different colored people, because they say racist, but there's no race. There's only one race, the human race. Yeah. In that human race, you got different colors and different cultures and, but there's only one race, the human race. And
Mr. Garret, this is fascinating. And unfortunately, and I knew this was going to happen, we're running out of time, but I'm enjoying hearing you and your personal interaction with so much of Seattle history. But I do want to get to Liberty Bank, for example, and fast forward a little bit so that we your legacy and your history here for activism and advocacy. Unfortunately, I got to fast forward you a little bit because we have about 8 minutes left for this interview.
Okay. Well, to make a long story short, when I was in the Army, because I was talking back, I got sent to the federal penitentiary for failure to stand at attention. And my cellmate was this big, tall basketball playing brother from Harlem, New York. And I'm whining to him about how I've been abused and mistreated. I don't know what's going on, you know. And so he's the one that started telling me about the real Black Power movement, because they were calling me a militant, a panther, and, Muslim. I don't even know what they're talking about. So I did 4 months there. After I'd done 2 months in a cage, they had 4 cages in the barracks on one side and 4 on the other side that really agitated me and made me hostile, you know. So when I get out, I salute the walls in Leavenworth, Kansas, because that's the first time I was in Kansas. Well, it was the last time I was in Kansas, where my family, you know, my mother and father was from. So my dad, he's a Mason, and they had a credit union set, you know, NAACP credit union. So they expanded that into Liberty Bank in 68. It opened in 68. So basically, I ended up being a war resistor. What do you call POW, prisoner of war. I was U.S. Military in Saigon, in Vietnam, and I got kicked out of the Army, bad discharge. They're finally, 50 years later, they're going to upgrade it for failure to stand at attention. So that's what motivated me to get involved in politics, all this chaos that was going on. But I don't know really what I'm doing and what I'm dealing with, because my dad he raised 5 boys and never said one thing about watch white folks, you know. So we're out playing sports and everybody's everybody. And so when the Black Power movement came, it was like, oh, what is this, you know? And because my dad was an engineer, we were what they call bourgeois. And I'm like, bourgeois? Man, he used to buy old houses and we have to fix them up. And all we got was, fed and a place to stay. It wasn't until I went down south and found out what a plantation owner was that I understood, my dad, because he was old fashioned. So they formed Liberty Bank. They opened up Liberty Bank, and things were moving forward. But then all of a sudden, the reaction set in. You know, they killed Dr. King, and so Stokely Carmichael came to Garfield in, I think it was in 67, yeah, and gave a speech which basically brought Black Power to Seattle. And I remember Larry Gossett was sitting in the front on the gym floor in the front row listening to Kwame Ture, which he changed his name to. So Kwame Ture basically, Stokely Carmichael talked me into going to Africa in 74. And I used to teach school because when I got kicked out of the Army, the first job I had was teaching Black history at Franklin High School. And that basically turned out because our principal that was at Garfield was the principal at Franklin. And I had done a lot of Black history reading when I got locked up because I was trying to find out, hey, what's going on, you know? So that's how I ended up with the job. And Mr. Hannawalt, you know, he knew my whole family, knew my dad was an engineer and ran a government program, blah, blah, blah. So later on, it they were going to build a police station right down the street on 23rd and Yesler, kitty corner from the library next to the fire station. And Mr. Edwards, Isaiah Edwards, had owned Edwards Beauty School, one of the only black schools in the, and that's where D. Charlene went to school. And my mother used to do her hair, Juanita Rosalie Garret. And I just remember that all the things that added up to we not wanting a police station on 23rd and Yesler. So we started organizing, and we fought the police station for 3 years. And we blocked it because they were trying to put the police station in a residential neighborhood, so they had to get a conditional use permit. And in order to get the conditional use permit, they had to have community input. And so we used to have meetings. One time we had a meeting, I had 300 people. Only 2 people were for the police station, a white fireman and Gays, one of the Gays from Gays Bakery. And so we blocked the police station, but I'd countered the police station with a positive institution like the African American Heritage Museum and Culture Center. So after we defeated, so we raised, got 10,000 petition signatures against the police station in support of the African American Heritage Museum and Culture Center. So after we blocked the police station, I snuck up on Mayor Royer and said, Mayor, the community is really mad you trying to cram this police station down their throat. But if you get behind this museum concept, we'll let you come and cut the ribbon, knowing how politicians are. So he said, okay, Omari, I don't want to deal with those people that embarrass me blocking the police station. So you pick 6 people that are acceptable to me, and I'll pick 6 people that are acceptable, and we'll form this museum task force. So I knew what he was going to do. So I picked some notable, Lacey Steele, NAACP, big airhead. He ain't coming. Mona Bailey, the late Mona Bailey, assistant superintendent, big sorority sister. She's not coming. And I picked Dr. Wayne Williams, head of Black Studies at the UW. He's coming. Why? Because that's his area, of expertise.
Mr. Garrett, I'm sorry. I only have about a minute left. We just touched the surface of your activism. Again, this is a platform, and this is a platform for you to share as part of a Northwest pioneer and history maker, whether people agree with you or don't agree with you. I have about 1 minute left, and I want to give you final words, and maybe we'll just have to do a part 2. But I got about a minute left, so I want to give you an opportunity to kind of wrap this up.
Well, the main thing is like Back to the Future, because what we had at Garfield is what they call, quote, quote, integration. And my whole background is basically bringing back what we had in high school. Because sometimes I cry when I think of, all my classmates that, died in the war, all my classmates that, it's like we're trying to do what we already had. And now that they've whitened Garfield up, it's 80% white. And it's like, and now that they're doing the gentrification in the Central District, they're attacking our whole community. So we said, no. If we don't have a community, we don't have a future. It's just like Chinatown. So that's why I came up with the concept of Africatown. Well, if they got Chinatown, why don't we have Africatown where we could be proud of our culture? Because integration is really disintegration. And so that's what we've been about is, having our cultural part of town.
We will have to try to pick it up from there. I've got to go to our next regularly scheduled program. But if you would like to come back for a part 2, we would like to have you come back for a part 2. If you could do that.
I just want to thank you for the opportunity to express, politics and what's really going on in Seattle.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio World. This is our special edition of Seattle Black History Makers, Northwest Pioneers and Legacy Makers. All month long, we'll be celebrating and educating on Black history. Later on this afternoon at 5:30, we'll be taking a look at the trans movement. That'll be 5:30, the Black Trans Movement. And then tonight at 7:30, Northwest Tap Connection will be performing live from the historic Columbia City Theater. We've got great things going on all month long. Go to our website at rainieravenue.radio.world and check it out, and we will be back with you. It's me, Tony B, on behalf of Rainier Avenue Radio. A special thanks to the Urban League of Metropolitan Seattle for powering our month-long events. And we'll be back with you and turn you now back to your regularly scheduled programming. Thank you.